This is Jeremy Phillips from findingyourchurch.com, and I want to talk about church podcasts just for a couple of minutes here. One of the goals of every church should be to spread their message, and that's not the goal of every church, unfortunately, but that should be our goal, and podcasts are a great way to do that, and podcasts are also a great way to share the message of your church with people who will never even step foot in the door of your church, and so that should also be another goal of churches, is to reach out beyond, what actually just helps them. And podcasts, of course, have been around for a long time. It's nothing new. It's not, the latest and, greatest technique of reaching people, but it is still a very valid way to spread the message of, your church or the message of the gospel in a fairly simple way once it's set up. But, setting it up can sometimes be tricky depending on what you're using for your church website. And specifically, one great way to do it is with WordPress. And so if you're using something else, you could still use WordPress for your church podcast, because you could set up a simple blog website with WordPress and then add a plugin. And if you click the link in the YouTube video here, it'll take you to a page on my website where I talk about what I consider to be the best plugin for WordPress websites. So, the three major ones, it's not necessarily the only places to distribute your podcast, but the three main ones are iTunes, Stitcher, and Stitcher is a great place to set up your podcast for your Android listeners, Android users, because it has a great app that works well with that. And then also, just another place that I like to put the podcast is in the Google Play store. And so they have a whole podcast section that they've started. And of course, most of it's not church related, but that's another good reason to have it in there is, just like iTunes or any of them, it gets your content mixed in with a lot of other, different secular, non-Christian places that people are already going for content, and then they find your stuff. So it's a great way to get the message out about your church. And it's also something that if you set it up correctly can work both for, Apple and Android. And so the hard part, though, again, is, getting it set up. And so even though it is easy to set up in one way, once you have your sermons going into the right feed and doing the right things, but the plugin that I was talking about that makes it very easy to not only just publish your sermons, it has an excellent interface and player that you can put right on your WordPress website, but it also creates the feed necessary to submit to Stitcher and iTunes and Google Play. And so again, once you have it set up on your website with the correct feed, and you have audio in your feed or whatever, it's very easy to set up, but you got to do that other part first. So go ahead and click the link in the YouTube video, and it's a page on the website at findingyourchurch.com that will tell you. I also have instructions, videos, tutorials to walk you through how to set up this plugin on your website, how to create the podcast. I have all that over there. So go ahead, click the link, and get started on creating your church podcast today.